Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today. My name is Ed Braxton, and I'm current board chair for the Lompoc Valley Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. And it's my honor to introduce a gentleman I had the privilege of having as a colleague for a time. For those of you that don't know, I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer for Lompoc Valley Medical Center. And the gentleman I am about to introduce retired as the Clinical Laboratory Director at LVMC in 2013. But there are a few things that you may not know about him. Did you know that before coming to Lompoc, he worked at setting up clinical laboratories in Singapore, Malaysia, and India? He's a veteran of the US Navy. He was originally elected to our city council in 2008 and has continually served our city ever since. He earned his bachelor's degree from Pepperdine University and his master's degree from Golden Gate University. He's an active member of the Lompoc Rotary Club, and I introduce you to Mayor Bob Wingle. Thanks, Ed.
Let's see if I can make this thing work. Everyone hear me? Okay. Well, thank you, Ed, for the gracious introduction. Thank all of you for being here today. It's a real pleasure to see so many familiar faces throughout our community. You know, the State of the City address is sometimes, I always look forward to it, but having it as part of the Chamber Luncheon is a new format for the City of Lompoc, and one that I hope will continue. I appreciate the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event, and I thank you in the audience for being here to learn more about our city, what's happening, and the good things to come. Overall, I think we've made some significant strides towards being a more vibrant community and a stronger city. As you go up and down 8th Street, you see major projects being constructed right now. You see some revitalization of some old buildings. Construction's going on. Hopefully, in the near future, you're going to see some real nice construction of new homes being built on the north end of our town. You also, as you're going around town, hopefully you're seeing staff working hard to deliver the projects that we have recently approved in our budget. The steady growth of the economy, along with new leadership at City Hall, has made some real positive changes. But as you know, change is not easy. It means having challenging discussions, some heated debates, and making tough decisions. But when you have a clear vision of how you want our community to look, it helps to achieve these goals by having people you respect and you work with. Our community is a city council manager form of government, which means the city council is the policy-making body, and the city manager is the CEO of our city. That is why, since I've been mayor, I've asked Patrick Weimiller, our city manager, to give the State of the City address. He runs this company. Who better to give the address than him? As mayor, I chair the policy-making body of the city council. And as I mentioned earlier, it is an honor to serve with the other 4 gentlemen. Our city manager will spend some time this afternoon summarizing what's been going on in our community, the successes in the past, and also pertaining to some of the successes we hope to see in the future. And we'll be celebrating those. But the real theme of today's State of the City address is the future. Never before has it been more critical in our time where the decisions we make today will impact our children, grandchildren, and generations to come. The decisions we make on the city council, community members, business owners, and private citizens, these decisions will dictate where we go from here. Do we go down the path that we've started, the path of success, or do we go back? Do we take a step backwards? We need to continue the steps forward to continue the economic success we've been having. A step backward will contribute to economic suppression and continued inadequate infrastructure. I, for one, I am committed, when I leave this job, I am committed to make this city a better place than when I found it. I am equally committed to putting the tools in place that will perpetuate this concept. It is now my pleasure to introduce our city manager, Patrick Weimiller. Patrick came to the city of Lompoc as manager in January of 2014. He is an honors graduate of the California State University at Fresno with a bachelor's degree in finance and an MBA. His career has spanned 4 decades. Patrick, can someone get him a cane and a wheelchair? 4 decades. These 4 decades have been in both public and private sectors, including banking and agriculture. But for the past 23 years, he has been in local government. As an aside, recently the City Council completed an annual performance appraisal on our city manager. And while I can't go into the details of the evaluation, the appraisal, I can tell you that as a member of the City Council that hired Patrick as our city manager, it is one of the best decisions I ever made on the City Council. Patrick is an experienced in city government. He's experienced in leadership, and exactly what we needed then and exactly what we need now to have this city continue moving forward and to continue to grow stronger. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Weimiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the Chamber. Thank you to you all for being here today and joining us in this discussion. Your attendance certainly demonstrates your interest in our community and your interest in the direction of Lompoc. I thank you because it takes a whole community of caring and active people to guide a city on a greater path. City government certainly cannot do that alone. Community greatness does not happen accidentally either. It is the result of being intentional, having a plan, laying out a blueprint, protecting the principles that lead to greatness, and yet being flexible enough to make necessary adjustments as we travel along this path together. So let me share with you some of the highlights of where we are on this journey and where we, all of us in this room, have been accomplishing recently and what we see when we look ahead. Before I do proceed with that, though, I want to say that being city manager here in Lompoc is a dream job for me, and I thank you for that privilege. I want to quickly acknowledge and thank the people without whom I wouldn't be here. First, Mayor Bob Lingle and council members Dirk Starbuck, Dwayne Holmdahl, Victor Vega, and Jim Mosby. I serve at their pleasure, and so far they've seen fit to keep me around, so thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I also want to acknowledge former Mayor John Lynn and former council member Ashley Costa, who along with Bob Lingle, Dirk Starbuck, and Dwayne Holmdahl hired me. And I appreciate that opportunity. Can't introduce my wife, Cindy. I just wanted to give a little plug that later this summer we're celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary together. Thank you. My colleagues have only worked with me for 2 years, and they're wondering how in the heck she's done it. But anyway, maybe she's got tips for them. I also want to thank my mom, who's here, June Chadwick. She's joining us today, and I certainly wouldn't be anywhere without her. As I arrived in Lompoc 27 months ago, I discovered the many delightful features that Lompoc has to offer, and all of you know these things full well. A friendly and warm community, a city with deep roots and a rich history, and a wonderful climate and clean air that is envied by many. I think sometimes we take it for granted here, but it's pretty nice. And I noticed there was a lot of boomerangs, people returning here who had previously moved away only to realize that it's hard to find a better place to live and raise a family than right here. As I arrived, I discovered also a handful of challenges. The city budget had been through 5 of its most trying years in city history due to the Great Recession. Special funding sources were disappearing. Aging and inadequate infrastructure was pretty much across the board in streets, police, fire, parks, water, sewer, even our financial computer system. The funding mechanisms to pay for new infrastructure had been severely underfunded for decades, and in some cases not funded at all. There was one of the big challenges I noticed when I got here. Perhaps this is the biggest challenge. In fact, for me, it's a paradox. Some of the same people that have lived here for years and generations, some of the people who are ambassadors for all the wonderful things this community has to offer, when I present an idea for change that could boost the city, I get some response sort of like, oh, that won't work here. This is Lompoc, or that's too nice for Lompoc. Yeah, I heard those giggles and a few groans, right? Yeah, some of the guilty are here. Not to worry. We're going to have an intervention right now, okay? We're all going to get rid of that out of our vocabulary because there is nothing we can't do. So raise your right hand. No, your right hand. Come on. Okay, repeat after me. We deserve and expect the best in Lompoc. Now tell the person next to you the same thing. Right. All right, we're on board. I didn't ask you to take over the speech, though. As I share with you all these things accomplished in the past year that I'm going to over the next few minutes, because of time limitations, I'm not going to be able to give individual credit to all the people who have made things happen, and I apologize for that. But there just won't be time to do that today. But you all know who you are, and please know I respect and applaud your accomplishments. I am not taking credit for these accomplishments. Other people deserve the credit. I just get to be the one up here to tell you all about them. So, first, it was just about a year ago that the current City Council met for a couple of special workshop sessions to establish city priorities and to reaffirm the values that we hold high in pursuing those priorities. The current set of priorities are economic development, public safety, code enforcement, parks, and infrastructure/technology. And the values include accountability, efficiency, and transparency. The City Council held these special workshops in anticipation of the coming budget cycle at the time, and was in that budget was in build mode. We developed the budget using a different approach than we had in the past, particularly keeping those values of accountability, efficiency, and transparency in mind. We developed a zero-based budget, with each program needing to affirm its need, purpose, and funding levels. We stepped away from the former process of budgeting just based on the previous budget cycle allocations and making adjustments for such things as inflation and known price changes. Instead, we started from scratch, looking at operations based on anticipated work volume, cost per unit, efficiency standards within each industry that we operate, productivity norms, and allocated dollars according to the standards and priorities set by the City Council. I'm going to report to you along with topic areas formed over our budget. The services that the city provides can be characterized as providing necessities for the community, which is like our public works and public utilities operations, ensuring quality of life, which includes our economic development, housing, recreation, and library operations, and keeping us safe, which is our police and fire department operations. Please know that behind the scenes supporting all these activities include functional areas such as finance, human resources, purchasing, information technology, administration, and our city attorney. In providing necessities, we added 3 new positions in parks and building maintenance to help provide a better standard of care to our parks and to help recover from the positions that had been eliminated in the Great Recession. These positions are reducing the deferred maintenance list that had been growing for several years in our parks. We saw dividends pay off of the city's 10-year program to replace high-maintenance trees. After the first year, claims for tree-related damage incidents dropped 50% compared to the previous year. My experience with both public works and utilities is that they largely go unnoticed despite touching each of our lives several times a day. They go unnoticed as long as everything works perfectly. No one says a thing, but heaven forbid when something goes wrong, then we all notice. But to touch upon just the volume of daily operational imperatives, for instance, with our utilities, our electric division distributed 35 million kilowatt hours of electricity and did so with a fairly high level of reliability. Our water division served over 1.3 billion gallons of clean, safe, reliable drinking waters. And kudos to you, the citizens of Lompoc, who reduced water usage by another 22% through conservation efforts, well beyond the state mandated levels, and in addition to the great job that you had already done in past years. Thank you. That's worth it. Our wastewater division treated almost 1.1 billion gallons of wastewater at the highest standards to keep our environments clean and safe, complying with all state and federal requirements. Our solid waste division collected over 26,000 tons of municipal solid waste, recyclables, and green waste, and operated our landfill in an environmentally responsible manner, again, complying with all regulations. We began broadcasting of our low-power FM radio station, KPEG 100.9 on your FM dial. This provides us with simulcast opportunities for programming material currently on TAP TV, as well as an additional form of communication in the event of emergencies. In terms of ensuring quality of life, the library has become a department of the city. This move provides a more stable current and future operating environment for the library. Soon after the merger, we hired our new library director, Sarah Blyle, an experienced and capable leader we stole from the Kern County library system. And then shortly after Sarah got here, we celebrated the arrival of the bookmobile. What a beauty it is. If you have not seen it in person yet, please make an effort to do so. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to the late Charlotte Benton, former mayor of Lompoc, whose vision and generosity in supporting Children's Library has taken the form in this bookmobile. Thank you as well to the Benton Trust and all the other contributors who helped make this bookmobile a reality. Besides the bookmobile, the library has had more than 312,000 visits in the past year and currently boasts over 1 million books, movies, music, and other resource items available to all of you. In economic development, a lot has been happening in the community, due in no small part to the rigorous efforts of Teresa Gallivan, our Assistant City Manager, who also serves as our Economic Development Director. Her team has tirelessly worked over the last year to promote Lompoc, attract new businesses, clear the obstacles for existing businesses to expand, and to promote incentive programs for investments locally. In the area of planning and development, the 2030 General Plan update was completed, which includes an economic development element. The Hilton Garden Inn broke ground at H and Barton, and upon completion will add 156 rooms to Lompoc's current inventory of 991 hotel rooms. We are growing as a destination. This is a good thing for our economy. Several new restaurants opened, including Floriano's, that relocated and expanded to the former Carol's restaurant at H and Barton, and did so making use of the city's utility rebate economic incentive program. The Lompoc Radiation Oncology Center completed construction and began serving Lompoc residents. Not only has this been a great addition to our growing healthcare industry that provides living wage jobs, most importantly, it provides world-class cancer treatment right here in Lompoc and relief from traveling to treatment for those in our community who are battling cancer. We completed annexation of the Summit View Homes project area at Harris Grade, and Parisima Road, which plans to build 44 homes. This was a hard-fought battle to expand our city limits and may be foretelling of future annexation challenges. Not all of our projects we worked on resulted in a launch. The city team spent an immense amount of time, effort, and energy in trying to make the proposed Space Center project a reality. Ultimately, though, the city council and city staff have a fiduciary responsibility to you, our citizens, to protect the money and assets you have entrusted in our care. While the proposed Space Center had creative and interesting concepts, such a project proposal must meet fundamental requirements to demonstrate the experience, plans, and financial capital to deliver a completed project. Without those elements being proven, we just could not gift the 82 acres of land to the project proponents. The City Council took plenty of heat for their decision, but as someone who watched closely all of the events and had the information, I can assure you that it was the correct action, and I applaud them for their courage. Not wanting to merely put the property back on the shelf, City of Lompoc staff is developing its own concept for using the site to develop amenities for the community that are consistent with its allowable uses. That's just a teaser, and you'll have to wait to hear more about it, but just let me tell you, it's going to be neat, and it's going to kill the old tired line that there's nothing to do in Lompoc. For anyone that thinks not much is happening in the Old Town area, time to think again. The Solvang Brewery Company pulled permits and has been converting the former Beatty Ford dealership at H and Chestnut into a restaurant and microbrewery. The city partnered in providing a $200,000 economic development loan for this project. The city conveyed ownership of the Lompoc Theater to the Lompoc Theater Project Committee for the price of $1. So that they in turn could begin their fundraising and restoration efforts of this historic property. We're looking forward to that with great anticipation. We celebrated the installation of the city's first creative crosswalks project at the intersection of H and Cypress. Yes, thanks. Where local artists' creations are on display in crosswalk areas that also provide a fun and exciting lure to pedestrians to get some exercise. Thanks to Joanne Plummer and Ashley Costa for bringing the concept to Lompoc and making it a reality. And watch for the next set of creative crosswalks coming to an intersection near you. The city replaced the last of its aged and corroded cast iron water main pipe in the Old Town area at a cost of about $550,000. All of these projects together show that not only are there progressive things happening in Old Town, but also that the city itself is investing as an active partner. A lot has happened in our housing programs as well. The tenant-based rental assistance program provided rental, security deposits, and utility deposits to low-income households and obtain rental housing in the city of Lompoc. This last year, we assisted 89 households with that program, of which 36 were otherwise homeless with security deposits. Thank you. The city sold the Marks House to Good Samaritan Shelter for $1 in a transaction approved by the City Council. In addition to continuing to provide transitional housing for families in need, Good Sam also renovated the adjacent Harvey House, combined with the generous donation from Mrs. Harvey. It is absolutely beautiful. What an improvement from when I first saw that house, and is currently housing a family of 8 who recently lost the father in the family unit. This is a classic demonstration of the good that can be done when you combine together the efforts of a nonprofit organization, a private citizen, a city, and the county, and we applaud all of them for their efforts. Here's a fun topic, parks. The Bike Skills Park opened this past year thanks to the efforts of the Lompoc Valley Parks Recreation Pool Foundation, and a particular thanks to the exhaustingly hard work of Mr. Dave Baker and many volunteers who made that a reality. Work also began on the environmental studies for the proposed motorsports park. This is another volunteer effort from the Lompoc Valley Parks Recreation Pool Foundation. The proposed project is intended to provide attractions for local residents as well as being a destination for others in the region. Stay tuned as the project moves forward through its environmental review. A group of City of Lompoc employees organized a volunteer effort to create a beautiful and spacious barbecue area at Thompson Park. The area was built in honor of their late colleague, Dwayne Fuggs, who used to cook barbecue for youth fundraisers such as for Little League. I think it is a fine memorial and a great example of city workers giving back to their community. Also at Thompson Park, thank you. Make sure you get by and see it. It's a great area. Also at Thompson Park, another volunteer effort is commencing from community members, including Lompoc Girls Softball Association, Lompoc Parks and Recreation Men's League, Granite Construction, and Wilco Distributors, all donating material, equipment, and labor to resod the softball field, while city crews will provide gopher wire and enhance other features. I love these public-private partnerships. We can do great things together. We completed renovations to the Anderson Recreation Center, which included a new gym, a banquet floor, basketball and volleyball sets, subfloor, an expanded seating area in the lobby, and lots of paint. Our recreation division hosted the only team conference on the Central Coast, and it continues to make significant positive impacts on the lives of local teens. The conference inspires and seeks to bring out the leader in each one. We had a return to movies in the park in the summer, providing free, wholesome family entertainment and helping preserve some of our small town feel. And one of my personal favorites, the Ryan Park Arch is once again standing straight up. Now, this is just a glimpse of things to come. More on that when we talk about looking into the future. But I do want to mention that the project was awarded the American Public Works Association Project of the Year. Thanks. The city provided cash and in-kind services in the amount of $135,000 to support 17 distinctly different community events. We also initiated a monthly code enforcement team meeting, a regular meeting that brings together all the various departments involved in maintaining the safety and aesthetic standards of the city. The team tackles problems and issues ranging from graffiti to illegal dumping, weed abatement prior to fire season, hazardous property issues, and the like. And now on to public safety. In terms of keeping us safe, a lot has happened over the past year with both our police and fire services. Regarding police, I first want to acknowledge the continued fine work of Police Chief Pat Walsh and members of our police force. Thanks. Chief Walsh continues to do what he promised to do when he arrived, and that was to improve police relations in the community through increased outreach and to improve internal organization of the department with a return to the basics. This past year, our police department saw several retirements, and though we were sorry to see several dedicated people leave, these retirements made way for several good hires. Joe Mariani has joined us as a captain, along with Captain Ed Lardner, assists the chief in providing executive leadership for our department. We hired 6 new police officers, 2 police records technicians, a dispatch supervisor, a dispatcher, and a jailer. We also promoted 3 corporals to sergeants and 3 of our officers to corporals. Lompoc PD had the largest drug and cash seizure ever recorded in their history, with over a pound of heroin, 3 pounds of meth, and a pile of cash that I believe took over 6 or 8 hours to count. It was pretty impressive. The Detective Bureau solved several high-profile cases, and we could spend a day just talking about those, but we're just going to glance right over that, but know that they are working hard. On the proactive side, Lompoc PD expanded its outreach, organized community walks, engaged faith-based and non-profit service organizations, and participated in many community events. We released our Lompoc Police app, and it already has over 11,000 subscribers. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a great source of receiving relevant information while providing easy access for contacts to our department, including a tip line. Onto the fire department, which is led by our Fire Chief Kurt Latipow. I wish I had the words to convey how blessed we are to have Chief Latipow here in Lompoc. Not only is he a capable leader in our department, he's one of the standard bearers in the fire service statewide. He not only organizes and leads our fire department, but he actually teaches other fire chiefs on how to provide better levels of service. Chief Latipow and his team handled an increased workload in this past year in an incredible fashion. Calls for service increased to 4,230 from 3,888 a year before, nearly a 9% increase in just 1 year. Our fire department took command of our building inspection function, unifying that with our fire marshal activities in an effort to further streamline our services for new and expanded development. We welcomed 3 new firefighters to the department. We preserved 6 firefighter positions and 3 police officer positions that otherwise would have been lost when their grant funding ran out and expired. And I thank again the City Council for making those appropriations. Fire conducted 195 outreach programs to proactively teach citizens, particularly kids, how to stay safe. Our fire department initiated utilization of mobile data terminals in response to apparatus, in its response apparatus, enhancing communications and data collection. Our fire department and our Public Works Department both put forth considerable effort to prepare the Lompoc community for the possibility of the most intense El Nino storm activity. We're still waiting for all of that to come, but we were ready. Our fire department assisted the county in battling and quickly suppressing the Burton Mesa fire this last year. Here's a great report. All fire service countywide, including our own fire department, achieved a significant accomplishment in cardiac saves. The national cardiac save rate average is right around 28%, and our local departments countywide were experiencing about that level at 27%. But due to some intentional efforts of all local area firefighters, we have increased our cardiac save rate countywide to 58%. This is amazing. Obviously, it translates to actual saved lives. A large portion of the improvement can be attributed to increased training and shortened response times. So you can see why I'm such a proponent of having properly placed fire stations with adequate training areas. And speaking of fire stations, I believe one of our fire department's most compelling accomplishments of the year was the completion of a detailed analysis of the need and design of a replacement for Fire Station 2. This station complex, had it been approved, would have served as fire administrative headquarters and as the city's emergency operations center in addition to replacing the current Fire Station 2. I'll talk more about our need for a new fire station in a few minutes. But as you can see from all of these things we've been talking about, there is a lot going on in the city of Lompoc and a lot of forward positive movement being made. And I just gave you the highlights of what happened last year. There's so much more we could have talked about, but there's simply not time to have covered all that today. But as to where we are today and where we are headed in the future, let me touch on a few issues that I encourage you to be informed on in the coming months. We have exciting new projects and a handful of very serious challenges ahead. We have important land use planning decisions ahead. At the next meeting on April 5th, the City Council will consider the Bailey Avenue annexation proposal. Regardless of your opinion on how we grow or exactly where we grow, there is no doubt that a healthy future for Lompoc necessarily includes growth. Growth to the south is not reasonable due to the topography. Growth to the east has been battled with great vigor by many parties for many years. Growth to the north has at times been encouraged, but as our most recent annexation experience to the north was being met with considerable resistance and delays, it leaves me fairly uncertain as to our ability to rely on north movement exposure. Maximizing infill is a great approach, but unfortunately we have a limited infill capacity. We're a fairly dense city already, but we should make use of the infill that's left. But because of its limited capacity and the need for growth to occur, The only proposal left is to grow to the west, and it's worthy of our attention to see what happens with the Bailey Corridor annexation. Without it, we could therefore only grow up, and I just don't picture Lompoc as a skyscraper type of community. We are in the process of updating our zoning ordinance as well, which not only will have a part of guiding how we grow, but also in setting standards for livability, quality of neighborhoods, economic development opportunities, and aesthetics. This is more than just a processing of a government document. The decisions that are made regarding the zoning ordinance will impact our quality of life for years to come. Out in the wine ghetto, many winemakers and tasting room operators have approached the city to encourage zoning changes that allow for dining in an otherwise industrial zone. It seems very reasonable to me, and I see that for many people, wine tasting and dining go hand in hand, and this can be a great economic enhancement to the city. So we'll be tackling that issue as we work our way through the zoning ordinance update. But for any of you wine ghetto operators that may be here, I have a strong word of encouragement for you. Please get on the same page. When the group, please, yeah, encourage them, please. When the group appeared before the city council, they all advocated allowing dining, which is again good idea, but there were spirited and even heated disagreements amongst the group itself as to exactly what sort of dining should be allowed or prohibited. It left most of us there in the meeting puzzled. Please help us to help you, and get to be a unified voice on how we're going to proceed with this very important issue. There are some exciting commercial and residential developments ahead. The Tobes Group and other developers have recently indicated they will soon be ready to begin construction of infrastructure for the Burton Ranch project, and have reached out to the city to partner in helping move that development forward with the formation of a Melrose district to provide support for that infrastructure. This should become a blueprint of how we should proceed with all neighborhood developments in the future to ensure adequate infrastructures in place and maintained. The Central Coast Business Park is launching its building and development activities just south of the airport. This promises to provide valuable and needed industrial capacity to Lompoc. We have received building and grading plans for Chipotle Mexican Grill near Central and H, and those are now being processed. We've also been told there are plans to develop the Habit Burger Grill next to Chipotle, but we haven't received those plans just yet. Looking ahead, I wish that everything I had to share with you was good news, but it's not. We are struggling with some significant issues and matters that are not always pleasant. But I promised the city council that hired me that I would always be candid and honest with them and with you, and I won't sugarcoat the truth. We have some significant issues. We have a significant social issue that we've been addressing and need to continue to address: homelessness. It is a complex issue with no simple or easy solutions. Let me first say that homelessness is not a crime. I received a call one day, and unfortunately this was not a unique call, from a citizen who was livid because of a homeless person being at a bus stop where they could see them and smell them. It was as though they wanted to be free of the burden of sharing their city with those people. If that's your feeling, you need a cardiac exam. You need to get your heart checked. Indeed, if there is bad behavior involved, we need to address that bad behavior as we would with anyone, regardless of their housing situation. Ultimately, the plight of the homeless, however, needs to be addressed in a comprehensive manner, because rarely is the sole issue of a homeless person the fact that they need a home. Mental health issues, physical health care, addictions, abuse, joblessness, training needs, nutrition, counseling, family reunification, and transportation are elements that frequently must be addressed in each individual case, in addition to housing, and must be addressed all at the same time to be most effective. If we don't have comprehensive solutions, the likelihood of success of mainstreaming people back into society by merely providing housing is fairly low. We don't have all the solutions, but we have some ideas on a way to help, and we'll be working through those. In the meantime, I think there's a 1-2 process that we can do. First, help bring immediate comfort and meet immediate needs. Be generous in supporting organizations that are the boots on the ground caregivers to the homeless. Volunteer with those groups. If you are inclined to give, giving to those groups is generally so much more effective than giving cash to an individual claiming to be homeless. Second, be part of the discussion and advocate for comprehensive solutions for the homelessness. Hold those governmental agencies accountable that receive tax funding to provide services that the homeless need. Our city government has many needs. Insufficient facilities and equipment must be addressed and remedied as we move ahead. We can only provide our citizens the levels of services that you all deserve if we are given the tools to do so. Our current needs include, at the Aquatic Center, we are in the process of replacing one pool pump and repairing another. In addition, we are rehabilitating plasterwork at the pools. The Aquatic Center is a gem of our community, and those repairs are urgent in order to keep that gem shining. As I mentioned earlier, the City Council has identified infrastructure and technology as priorities in our city. The city's financial system is in great need of a technology boost. Far from the integrated digital systems used by most organizations of our size and scope, we have a system that combines components that are manual, spreadsheets, and some computerized components that are over 30 years old, which is like 210 in computer years. Now, in looking at if you're taking a little chuckle at the abacus and the green screen up here, you'll love to hear that both are currently in use. Okay, I'm the only one that uses the abacus. But that green screen is really actually part of the current system, and we've gotten to the point we have to have an old DOS-based monitor in order to be able to talk to a component of the computer system. So we'll be biting the bullet to make significant investments to automate our systems and allow them to cross-communicate, reducing significantly such things as billing errors, service delays, and enabling us to automate processes that are currently way too manual. We plan to begin development of our new transit and fleet center at D and Chestnut. This will provide parking and security for all of our bus coaches, as well as adequate space to provide safe and efficient maintenance for all of our fleet of vehicles. City facilities like our current corporate yard, where fleet and transit are currently housed, are crowded and insufficient and in dire need of expansion. While we have made improvements at our airport, we need to increase airport reserves so that we can provide matching funds when federal grant funding is available for additional infrastructure improvements. We must continue to regularly replace aging water, wastewater, and electric infrastructure to avoid catastrophes and interruptions of service. To do so, we have to protect and preserve utility rates at a sufficient level to pay for that infrastructure. We also need to make sure that all impact fees are established at an appropriate level to pay for new development and growth so that those costs are not wrongly shifted to current ratepayers. Impact fees must also be set at a fair share level to ensure that precious financial resources are not siphoned away from the needs of police, fire, parks, and streets. On the subject of streets, we need to take better care of our street infrastructure to both support our economic development and to provide for quality of life. Unfortunately, the funding sources for improving streets are no longer adequate or even relevant revenue models. The pay-at-the-pump gas tax approach worked when the gas tax was first established decades ago, but the tax was set at a certain amount per gallon and was never indexed to inflation. In the ensuing years and decades, the cost of street maintenance and road materials has increased dramatically, and the miles of streets to be cared for has expanded. The result is that we are at a point today that only a fraction of the number of miles of streets can be repaved. Combine this with the fact that automobiles achieve much better mileage today than decades ago, and you end up what you end up with is many more cars on the road, many more miles being driven, an increased inventory of roads to maintain, and much less revenues to repair streets. Our pavement condition index is declining here in Lompoc and across the state of California. We've got the perfect storm for massive street infrastructure failure. The statewide gas tax needs to be eliminated. and replaced with a license fee based on vehicle weight and miles driven, as those factors, along with time and weather, are what shorten the useful life of street surfaces. Stay tuned as we lobby for that. Our parks are in need of capital improvements. Almost all of our parks need new restrooms, and we're working on that. The soccer fields of Riverbend Park need to be stripped, re-leveled, covered with stainless steel, gopher wire, and resodded. Finding the money to do this is definitely on our to-do list. I mentioned the Ryan Park Arch earlier in terms of accomplishments, but straightening the arch was just barely scratching the surface of all the needs there at that park. Ryan Park needs a total makeover. We do already have plans to replace the stage, but we need to strip, lay gopher wire, and resod as well. We need to replace the walking track and the tot lot features. We need new and additional restrooms. We need to improve the electrical and the lighting. The parking lot pavement is in a state of total failure and needs to be relocated, expanded, and rebuilt. The vegetation across Ocean Avenue needs to be removed. We need to be able to see in and out. The current sports fields need to be either renovated or incorporated into the larger park complex. I'd go on, but you get the idea. I think the renovations to Ryan Park and to the soccer fields, for that matter, would be investments that would provide not only enhanced recreational opportunities for local residents, but also attract regional events and tournaments that would sell hotel rooms, restaurant meals, gasoline tanks, and other retail activity. But we are talking several $1 million here. So, but as I said before, we deserve and expect the best in Lompoc, so we got to find a way to do that. Our police department's property room is woefully inadequate in terms of space, equipment, and tracking system. The property room is essential in storing and processing evidence, solving crimes, and ultimately prosecuting criminals. In addition, our dispatch center needs additional space and upgrades in technology as well. Our dispatch center is critical to getting police and fire help to you quickly when you need it. We are exploring options for expansion of those facilities. Our police department also needs improvements to its current fleet, not only replacing aging and heavily used vehicles, but also meeting basic needs like onboard computers with database links, in-dash cameras, GPS and GIS units, and armored vehicles. As to that last item, I know that some of you might get a little squeamish when I start talking about armored vehicles, and perhaps have a concern that the presence of such vehicles starts to look like we're turning into some sort of military state. But I believe that a show of force lets the bad guys know you mean business, and that we avoid tragedies when we show strength. And in the unfortunate event we ever have an active shooter here, I want that armored carrier to protect our first responders and to assist in taking out the shooter. I'll make no apologies for being ready to respond to that situation with speed and with force. Earlier I mentioned our proposed complex to replace Fire Station 2, Fire Administration offices, and Emergency Operations Center. I don't know why 30 years ago, when the current Fire Station 2 was built as a temporary station, that a permanent savings plan and adequate fire impact fees were not established to ensure that at least a substantive portion of the necessary costs would be available today. But it didn't happen. The proposed facility that we have is not a Taj Mahal, as some might term it, but rather an industry standard facility that meets Lompoc's current and immediate future needs. It was designed with meticulous attention to space and use needs of the people, equipment, and apparatus needed to adequately protect the community, to protect you and me. Its proposed location provides an optimal mix of coverage and response times. And indeed, if the appropriate financial decisions had been made 30 years ago, and we had the cash to build it today, we would not be saying, that is too nice of a station for Lompoc, or that's too much money for what we're getting. We would recognize that it's exactly what we need, and we would build it. So I'm not here to be a Monday morning quarterback and second guess the financial decisions from 30 years ago. And I'm just trying to explain that Chief Latipow and I inherited a situation that needs fixing, and we are trying to fix it. And to do so, we need to finance that project. I am debt averse. I don't like taking on debt. And I wish this situation was one we had not inherited, but we did, so it's time to quit whining about it and get to providing solutions. The fire staff, finance staff, and I presented a financing program that I believe, no, that I'm certain we can afford. I am willing to put my professional reputation and my career on the line to back that up because I believe that strongly about it. The easy thing for the chief and me to do is to shrug our shoulders, say we can't afford it, and let someone else figure that out in the future after the need has become greater and the solution has become more expensive. But this isn't about making it easy on me. Now, I respect the fact that the majority of the city council was not as confident as I was in our ability to afford this project, and I have every bit as much respect for each member of the city council as I did before the vote. We have a difference in professional opinions, and that is an honorable thing. I am certain it was a tough decision for each of them to make, and each wrestled with the issue quite a bit. But if I understood city council correctly when they took that vote, their preference is to come back with a different method of paying for the project. To that end, we have agreed, city council included, to bring forward an impact fee study so that we can set impact fees on new development, all impact fees across the board, not just for fire, at the levels that contribute the fair share for the city's cost of growth to the new development that triggers those same costs. It's exactly what I wish they had done 30 years ago. And although yesterday would have been a better time to do it, today will work. And at least today is much better than tomorrow. So no more kicking the can down the road and leaving the future to future generations to figure out. We need to correct this and other situations neglected as we grew. Fire, police, parks, streets, city facilities, by taking this fair share approach. Stay informed and please hold us accountable to make tough decisions that preserve our collective future. I want to thank again the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event, and may God richly bless you and our great city in this coming year. Thank you.
Okay, as we wind down our luncheon, thank you again to Patrick for the presentation, to Mayor Lingle for being here, my staff for helping put this together, to Teresa Gallivan and the city staff, Mario Guerrero, Sue Slavens for helping make this all work. We appreciate their help in doing this. Now, the mayor or the city administrator has agreed to stick around afterward. I know many of you probably have to go back to work, but he will stick around and will be here and available to answer questions for anyone who would like to stick around. So with that said, luncheon's over. Thank you for being here. I hope you learned something. Again, Patrick will be here to answer questions.